All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Christian McCaffrey did not show up to voluntary OTAs this week. Is it a big deal, a small deal, or no deal? Or not a big deal, I should say. And we'll hit that next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili in you. Tell them that Krug sent you. And this video is also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. Call Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. All right, let's talk a little bit about one of the stories coming out of minicamp was that Christian McCaffrey wasn't there. He wasn't the only one who wasn't there, but he wasn't there. And last year in minicamp, he was like the tone setter. He wasn't just there. He was like clearly the guy who was in the best shape, clearly the guy setting the tone. And in this particular voluntary OTAs, he wasn't there. Didn't show up. Now, once again, voluntary OTAs. So is he going to be fined? No. Is it a big deal? Shanahan was asked about it, and he said, well, I guess we'll find out when when we get to the mandatory version of this, which is in June. But right now he's not expected to be there. It's voluntary and he wasn't there. Now, he is getting married soon. So there's always the speculation that maybe he's just busy with that. I'm sure. He's not the kind of guy that gets out of shape ever. So there's no concern from the 49ers perspective if he's in shape. But he may not be happy with his contract. So we'll talk about that in a second. Now, why are we even speculating? Because there were other guys that weren't there. And as I said, it's voluntary. So on the surface, what's the big deal? Guys miss voluntary minicamps all the time, especially established veteran players. It could be a number of things. It could be that the season went so long that, he's trying to get his body back in condition. George Kittle was there, but just standing there in civvies. He was not practicing. Drake Jackson was there rehabbing. Talanoa Fonga was there rehabbing. The season went until the middle of February for the 49ers. So the fact that some of their stars are not necessarily at the voluntary early May OTAs, I can't lose my mind over it. But what makes it a story is that yesterday we had a chance to go down to Santa Clara and talk to the coaches. Now, all of the assistant coaches were there. So we didn't talk to Shanahan, didn't talk to Lynch, but we didn't talk to Chris Forrester. But the rest of the coaches were there, including Brandon Staley and including running back coach Bobby Turner. And when Bobby Turner was asked about CMC, he said, that's the business side, and I don't want to get into that stuff. So he almost alluded to the fact that maybe there is an issue with Christian McCaffrey that relates to him wanting more money or being dissatisfied with his contract or I don't know. I don't know what the other options are. Really, that's it. Those are the options. So let's talk about McCaffrey. He's coming off a career year. He's in his late 20s. He's the highest paid running back currently in the NFL. He makes $14.1 million. He's the highest paid running back in the league. So it's not like he's sitting there going, hey, man, I was one of the best running backs in pro football, and you guys are paying me peanuts. No. He's making $14.1 million. He's the highest paid running back in the league. But when Bobby T says, hey, that's the business side, and I don't want to get into that stuff, it does kind of make you wonder if there is some issue going on beyond he's getting married, beyond his body's fatigued, beyond, there are other guys that didn't show up. Is it possible that Christian's not happy? He's coming off his career year. He may want a new deal. Brock Purdy's on the verge a year from now of getting a contract probably north of $50 million. Juwan Jennings is operating on a restricted tag. He hasn't signed yet. Brandon Ayuk's waiting for a contract extension that may or may not come this year. And so his status is a little bit TBD. Deebo Samuel, in a lot of people's minds, is entering into the final year of his Niner career. And Deebo's kind of like, hey, we'll play it as it comes. McCaffrey has zero guaranteed dollars left on his deal. So there's no chance in hell the 49ers are going to cut him, but they could cut him at any point and incur no cap, payout of any kind. Debo, as I mentioned, could be in the last year of his stay with the Niners. That's very much a reality. You could make an argument that with all the different weapons the 49ers have had, they've got Debo, Ayuk, JJ, Kittle, McCaffrey. Now they just added Jacob Cowing and Ricky Pearsall at wide receiver. They also added Cody Schrader and Isaac Guerendo at running back. There's more mouths to feed. There's more people that need to be fed in this offense. And at times you could argue that many of the Niner offensive stars, skill position wise, have kind of, taken a lesser role and aren't performing aren't producing at the level that some of their counterparts are around the league just because of the number of options within this offense. I don't know that you can claim that they've been underpaid. Debo just, signed a monster deal for $28 million. It sounds like Ayuk may get north of $30 million. And as I just stated, McCaffrey's the highest paid running back in the league. But the question, I guess, that may be a concern for a guy like McCaffrey is the Niners just added 2 wide receivers, and there's an awful lot of speculation out there that their offense is going to feature much more of the pass game than the run game. Are they going to pass more and run less? And if they do, what does that mean for Christian long term? In some ways, he could look at it as a positive. Hey, they're preserving your body. On the other hand, they're putting they're suppressing your production if they indeed come out and pass more. So the question is, will the 49ers, should the 49ers give in if Christian does want a new deal? Or do they say, you know what, we'll get to you when we get to you. You're the highest paid running back in the game, and we love you, and you're a leader, but we'll get to you when we get to you. And, this is the rough side of the biz. Because even though there probably is no player that is meant more to the 49ers success in the last year than Christian, he's still a running back on a deep football team that's inside their Super Bowl window, that's on the verge of paying the quarterback 50 times what they're paying him right now. And there's a lot of other stars. And then you look at this offseason, Christian badly wanted the Niners to draft his brother, Luke McCaffrey. I asked him about it middle of the year. He was really hardcore about, man, I want to play with Luke, and I really want the Niners to get him. And then Adam Peters and the Commanders jumped in, I think took him in the 3rd round. So I don't blame the Niners at all for not drafting Luke McCaffrey, because they just didn't have the pick. Were they going to go draft him in the 2nd round? Their pick in the 3rd round came after the Commanders' pick in the 3rd round. So they couldn't draft him in the 3rd round. He wasn't there in the 4th round. I looked at Luke McCaffrey, and I thought I saw a nice player, 1-year starter as a receiver, converted quarterback. But I didn't see tons of separation, and I wouldn't have taken him before the 5th round. So the fact that the Commanders took him in round 3, I think if you're John Lynch, if you're, Tariq Ahmad or any of the Niner scouts, you could look CMC in the face and say, sorry, bro. We had a 4th or 5th round grade on Luke, and the Commanders took him in round 3, and that's the way it works. So we don't get him. But maybe he's mad about that. I don't know. I doubt it, but he possibly is. The Niners also added, I think, 2 real, interesting contributors at running back. I mean, what is Isaac Guerendo? I asked Shanahan. To me, he was wearing number 49. He looks like a fullback. He played, he was a great, awesome high school wide receiver coming out of high school. So is he a wide receiver? Is he a running back? Is he a fullback? Is he a tight end? And Shanahan's made it clear he's a running back. All right. Well, but you also have Elijah Mitchell, and you also have Jordan Mason, and you got this McCaffrey guy, and now you're adding Guerendo, and you added Cody Schrader, who for whatever reason opted to sign with the 49ers as an undrafted player, which is really shocking because there's no room at the inn, so to speak, when it comes to running back carries for Cody Schrader. So I don't know what the plan is. Is Schrader, does that move have anything to do with McCaffrey? Does the Guerendo pick have anything to do with McCaffrey? What's the future of Jordan Mason? To me, McCaffrey's a star. There's no question in my mind that Jordan Mason is a starting caliber NFL running back. I think Elijah Mitchell is a borderline starting NFL running back. It's clear that Guerendo has the size and speed to be a starting NFL caliber running back. Cody Schrader was first team all SEC running back this year at Missouri. So that's the best conference in college football. So I think it's safe to say Schrader is a starting NFL running back. And maybe that's not the case, but I think it is. So they're stacked. They're loaded. And as much as I love CMC and think he's a key cog, and you can't get burned paying running backs for yesterday production when you're paying them out tomorrow. You're paying them on what's coming up, and if you're going to pay Christian McCaffrey based on what he did last year, man, that could be rough because one of these years the usage indicates that he's probably going to be done. So the running back careers are short. So I understand why he wants to preserve, maybe it's a simple situation where he just wants to preserve his body a little bit. Maybe it's a situation where he's just getting married in a few weeks and got other things on his plate. Maybe he feels like he's trained well enough on his own. Maybe he's trying to send a message that he'd like a new deal. Maybe he's sending a message that he's unhappy that they didn't draft McCaffrey. Maybe his brother Luke, I should say. Maybe he's unhappy that Guerendo and Schrader are suddenly in a loaded running back room, or maybe he's turned off by the fact the Niners drafted Cowing and Pearsall in round 1 and may come out throwing the ball an awful lot more, and maybe that means less touches for CMC. But if it comes down to, is it a big deal? Is it a small deal or no deal? We really don't know the answer because we don't know the mindset of McCaffrey or his agent or their approach or why they sat out the voluntary minicamp. It could be no deal at all. It could be absolutely nothing. Could be just, hey, I'm getting married in a few weeks, and you know what? I'm training well on my own, and I'll show up for the mandatories, but I'm not going to show up for the voluntaries. Or he could have a beef, but he can't be a beef with what he's making. He's making the most. It can't be a beef with, is it a winning team? They went to the Super Bowl. It can't be a beef that they didn't draft his brother because they didn't really have a reasonable. I mean, if it had been round 5, Jerry Rice could walk around the Niner complex and be like, dude, you guys didn't draft Brendan? What the hell? He went in the 7th round. You had opportunities. You took, backup offensive linemen before you took my kid. He's got a reason to be like, hey, man, what the hell? But Christian doesn't, because Luke went in the 3rd round to the Commanders. And the Niners, their earlier pick was a late 2nd. They weren't going to take Luke McCaffrey in the 2nd round. That's what, 3-4 rounds before. I thought he was a 5th round pick. And then if you really wanted him, you take him with one of your multiple picks they had in the 4th round. But to take him in the 3rd round, no way. No way. I didn't see it. I mean, every time I saw him, he made catches. He was all conference. He was good. But the coverage was right there. There was no separation at all. He was being blanketed by DBs in college. So I don't know. I mean, I like him as a prospect, but I don't love him as a prospect. And I don't think he plays to that 40 time. But that's Luke. So is Christian mad that they didn't go after Luke? I doubt it. Is he mad that Guerendo and Cody Schrader are there? I can't imagine he is. He may be looking at this as like, hey, you know what? There are very few opportunities for me to get paid again, and I'd like to have one more good contract. Maybe he's kind of reminding the Niners, hey, by the way, I'm out here, and I was a big chunk of your offense. Don't forget about me. But I'll say this. I don't think the Niners ought to give in. It's football. It's a team sport. They're hugged up against the cap. They're inside their Super Bowl window. They're paying this guy handsomely. He's a key cog for sure. Tell him how much you love him and take care of him when it's time to take care of him. But right now he's got a contract and he ought to honor it and ought to show up. And we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of people that are speculating that because Debo could be in his last year, because the Niners could, I guess, in theory, ask Ayuk to play on the tag, because Purdy's on the verge of getting paid, because maybe Kittle and Trent Williams are on the verge of retirement. Definitely Trent could be there. that this could be the last go round. A lot of people saying this is the last dance for the Niners. I don't know if I see it that way because Shanahan's so young, Purdy's so young. They still have a lot of good young talent on their roster. But there's going to be some faces that change. There's no question about that. And maybe one of them is McCaffrey. You're not going forever with a running back, and a $14 million running back is the highest paid running back in the game. That's him right now. So is it a big deal that he didn't show up? I don't think it's a big deal. I don't. I think he's kind of saying, hey, guys, let's not forget I was the central focus of the offense, and I don't have any more guaranteed money, and I don't, tomorrow is not promised to me. And so I'm not taking a chance of blowing out an Achilles in voluntary workouts. I'm going to take care of myself first. I'm going to make sure that I'm healthy for when it matters. I'm not firing bullets out of the chamber in May that I think I'm going to need in November. So is it a big deal? It could be a huge deal. McCaffrey could hate the Niners and want out, but there are no indications of that. It could be a small deal, and he's just kind of trying to remind everybody that, hey, you know what? He'd like, Brock's going to get a new deal, and JJ's going to get a new deal, and Ayuk's going to get a new deal, and maybe the guy who's like the best guy on the offense, Christian McCaffrey, who's a borderline MVP candidate, maybe he's just saying, hey, guys, don't forget about me. I'm over here, and I'd like to get paid something again as well. And they could be like, hey, we'll take care of you in time. And I think that's the approach they should take. Or it could be no deal. It could be not a big deal at all. It could be just a guy saying, I don't want to go to voluntary minicamp. I don't need it. Heck, for all we know, the 49ers, who had so many other, they just brought in 2 rookie backs. Maybe they said to him, hey, you know what? Maybe he said, I don't think I'm going to show up. And maybe they said to him, hey, you know what? We got a bunch of guys that need reps. That's fine. Don't, take care of yourself. You're getting married. Enjoy a few weeks off. We'll see you in the mandatory. We'll see you in training camp. Let's give those reps to Schrader and Garendo. I mean, you could make an argument that they need to give Garendo reps. And you could make an argument that they got to find out what Schrader is pretty soon, so they're going to know if he's on their team or not. And you could make an argument that J.P. Mason and Elijah Mitchell, who didn't get carries, enough carries, in my opinion, in the regular season, may want to give those guys a look and give them some run. And the plan could be to spread the carries around a little bit more this year. Or, it could just be as simple as, he sees the handwriting on the wall, and maybe the Niners are going to be more of a passing team. So I can't really sit here and tell you guys definitively, and you know me, I'm a straight shooter. I can't say definitively it's not a big deal at all. I can't say definitively that, it's just a minor deal because he's just kind of reminding you he's out there. And I can't say, yeah, it's a major thing and he's pissed and he's angry and he's unhappy. And this is just going to be, one of many players that is thinking about themselves and not the team this year as the Niners get late in their Super Bowl window and guys want to get paid. And maybe some guys have taken less through the years and have minimized their role within the offense to try to beat for the betterment of the team. And now everybody's, looking to get theirs. I mean, it could be a very bad omen of what's to come this season. It could be absolutely no big deal at all. And he's getting married in a few weeks and they've got a bunch of other guys and they said, hey, Christian, sit it out. We know what you are. You don't need to make the Pro Bowl in May. We'll see you in June for the mandatories, and we'll see you in training camp. And don't worry about this. And we need reps for Garendo and Schrader, and so it could be absolutely no deal at all. It could be team authorized for all we know. So we don't know. But it is interesting, and the fact that Bobby T would come out and say, that's the business side of things, and I don't get into that stuff. Well, maybe there is some, maybe that is the business side of the thing, and then maybe it's the business side going from the Niners to him saying, hey, you know what? We got other guys we want to look at, stay home. Or maybe it's him dictating to them, hey, you know what? I'm the biggest part of this offense and I'm not getting a new deal. And they're like, yeah, we'll get to you in time. And maybe he's a little pissed off by that. Maybe his agent's like, hey, I told him you're the biggest key cog in the engine. And they said, we'll take care of him down the road. Let's just sit this one out, Christian, and we'll let them see what they don't have. Let them take a look at Garendo and realize he's not you. Let him take a look at Mason fumbling a couple times, and then they'll remember that he's not you. I don't know. We can't say definitively what it is, but the guy's making 14.1 million. He's the highest paid running back in pro football. He's coming off a year where he was an MVP candidate. This is where he wanted to be. He knew he was going to probably get the ball less here with all the weapons than he would if he had stayed in Carolina and they, rode him hard and he was the only major weapon. So I don't think, there's really any bad blood. If you said guess, I would guess it's not a big deal and not no deal. I don't think he's on the verge of demanding a trade, and I don't think there's nothing to it and it's business as usual. I think it's a player and his agent who doesn't have any more guaranteed money and really has no promises for the future, just reminding the 49ers, hey, you know what? I'm the big dog in here. And you want to take care of these other guys, that's fine, but don't forget about me. And if you're telling me go, wait, well, I'm going to tell you I'll show up when it's mandatory and only when it's mandatory. So interesting, very interesting, because Bobby T said that's the business side and I don't get into that stuff. And that's the only reason I think this has become a topic at all. But it is interesting, and it is something to keep an eye on as the Niners head into June and the mandatory minicamp, and then, of course, in July with training camp. And we'll have a lot more knowledge of how this sits or if this is an issue in any way, shape, or form when we get to the middle of the summer. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.